So the Gen 8 and the Gen 9 literally sacrificed themselves to see which is the best. So can my fully upgraded Gen 8 compete with the stock Gen 9 in looks, drivability, and performance? How much bashing can each take before they die? Let's try it. Redcat has put out some of the best bang for the buck trail trucks on the market. I got the Gen 9 last year when it came out to see how Redcat's engineering and development team's fancy new rig would stack up against my badass Gen 8 that I've been upgrading and modifying since March of 2020. I went out to one of my favorite spots on the Flint River, shout out to Sproul Bluff Park, because of the variety of terrain that it offers. It has amazing trails, sand dunes, very jagged rocks and cliffs with sharp angles. Some of these spots are very hard for trail trucks to crawl, but look insane on camera when you can get them to hit some of those impossible lines. Let's start out by comparing the looks of both of these trucks. So I'll say that the Gen 9 looks pretty cool, but kind of basic. The roll cage and the interior are dope, but that flat back looks very basic. Show me some curves and some details, bruh. Look at that ass. My initial first impressions were a B+. The scaleness is on point, and I wish I would have put drivers in both of them for this video, but it is what it is. The down low cruising and crawler footage is stellar. Very similar to the stock Gen 8 with light buckets, mirrors, great detail. But my Gen 8 is a baddie. It continues to be a work in progress. I cleaned it up by removing the fender flares, gave it an aggressive front bumper, wheels and tires, cut the hood off roadkill style, stabbed in a big block Chevy, metal flaked it, cleared and cut the windows, and the list is ever evolving. So the results, hands down, Gen 8 kills the Gen 9. But what about performance? Surprise, surprise, the tires on the Gen 9 suck. Didn't expect much from the RTR in the wheel department, although I will say it handled better than the stock Gen 8 tire and foam combos did. The low speed control is very modulated, but these approach and departure angles are tough for a lot of crawlers. The tires are tucked in too far on the Gen 9 to grab traction before the bumper or the body gets in the way. It was able to force a lot of lines that I didn't expect it to do, but there's a lot left in it with some future upgrades and adjustments and tuning. All in all, this is one of the most underrated platforms in the hobby. This particular area is one of my favorites to get up normally. It's a relatively steep climb with a lot of rocks and roots at different intervals, but these tires just were not it. They gummed up real quick and made it impossible to finish, so after a long tumble I decided enough was enough. So with the Gen 8, I realized that half of the front drive was missing as soon as the Gen 8 touched one of the rocks. Epic fail. I tried to ease it on the rocks, but it's way too heavy with all that brass and additional weight from all the accessories and components. So I tried to beast it up too, and that didn't work either. Normally, the Hobby Wing with the Holmes Hobby setup are really good. The Desert Lizard shocks are super controlled, and all the brass underneath keeps it planted and lets it grip and rip up rocks and obstacles that it has no business being able to do. But you can't tell it from here. So the result, point goes to the Gen 9, but not by much. What about the drivability? So Gen 9 is just cheating with that 2-speed transmission. I know it's available for the Gen 8, but I don't have it yet. So the speed was impressive. I didn't have to walk at a slow pace, and it was very controlled at a slow crawl, as well as at high speeds. I've done the fast motor gear combo on other trail trucks before, but they were not as stable as this one. This thing zips around like a champ and is sick to take off of jumps. I had a little bit of slippage issues at first, but it seemed to work itself out after a little bit. It did kind of tip over just because it's still got the stock wheel width. So, having worked out the issues of the Gen 8 and the original version of the Gen 8, like the belly bump, the bump steer, the steering angle issues, top heaviness, articulation of the motor ESC, better servo, this thing drives like a champ, even with 3-wheel drive. The Hobbywing not only does the super slow, but it's got some speed and power too. So while it may not keep up with the 2-speed, it's still fun as hell to drive. So the result, it's a tie. Let's bash it up and see which one gets down and dirtiest the best. The dunes were crazy. So much fun. It's gonna be fun to clean all the sand out of everywhere, but who cares? The Gen 8 wins the bash test because the Gen 9 can't do donuts. The Gen 9 just flips over when it tries to do donuts. It hops, skips, and jumps, but no donuts. No winning. The truck itself is a solid platform with noticeable improvements over the previous model out of the box. But if I'm being honest, there's not enough differences to call it a 9th gen. It's more like the 8th gen V3. So water bashing, not gonna happen. The Gen 8 drivetrain died completely, which is a great excuse to upgrade to the 2-speed transmission. Ding. But the Gen 9 slipper clutch issues showed up again and did not let it happen. But here's a bonus water bashing session from the Chupacabra, just so you don't go home empty-handed. Bye!